Hello third graders. Today I'm going to read chapter 11 of Peter Pan because I sent home chapter 9 with you guys and then I did a reading of chapter 10. And so now I'm going to read chapter 11. But before we do that, let's remind ourselves of where we left off in chapter 10. So I'm going to go back a page. And this picture is really helpful because it kind of shows us what was going on. It reminds me that Peter was, remember he was looking at that white streak in the lagoon water and he was wanting it to win. He was rooting for it. And then as the white streak got closer, it turned out to be, that's right, the Never Bird. And the Never Bird was coming to rescue Peter because Peter was on the rock that was shrinking. Oh my gosh, my dogs are play fighting. Hey. Okay. And remember, the Never Bird gave Peter the nest to save him, and then in return, Peter gave the Never Bird his hat, which is right here. And it kind of goes to show that Peter does have a softer side to him, a nicer side, which is why I prompted you guys to do that paragraph. Is Peter nice, or is he a bad guy? It's kind of interesting because I do think that he has two sides to him. So let's go to chapter 11. It's called The Happy Family. I'm going to read it, and at the end, we'll kind of look at some vocabulary words. If you don't understand something in chapter 11, that's okay. You can always ask me. You can ask a parent or a family member. You can ask me on Class Dojo. Obviously, it's hard to read and not know where you guys are at with understanding because I don't get to see your faces. I don't get to see your hands raised. But any questions, just let me know. Okay, chapter 11, The Happy Family. And I'm already thinking, I wonder what family they're referring to, but I think we all probably know that they're kind of referring to the Lost Boys, Wendy and Peter in some way, and John and Michael, of course, because they've kind of created like their own little family on this Neverland Island. Okay. On the night that would come to be known as the Night of All Nights, the children ate a make-believe dinner. Unfortunately, the hunger was real, and as a result, they were noisy and misbehaving. Be quiet, Wendy yelled finally, for she was hungry and grumpy too. Is your plate empty slightly? Slightly looked down at his imaginary plate. Not quite, Mommy. He didn't take one bite of his carrots, Nib said. John raised his hand. Since Peter isn't here, can I sit in his chair? Sit in Father's chair? No, replied Wendy, who had taken to referring to Peter as father. He's not our real father, John complained. Toodles wanted in too. Can I be father? He asked. No, Wendy said. What about the baby? He asked. I'm the baby, Michael said. He was already settled in his comfortable basket. Toodles moped. Slightly had his elbow on the table, someone reported. The twins ate their dessert before their vegetables, someone else added. Curly is eating all the butter and honey. Nibs is speaking with his mouth full. What are they doing to each other right now? Something that I say that third graders do this quite a lot, but they're tattling on each other, right? They're kind of telling Wendy all the naughty things that they've been doing. Wasn't this just like normal family life? Later, after the imaginary dishes were washed, Wendy sat by the fire and sewed socks with very real holes in them. As her boys played around her, she felt very content with her familiar little family. Just one thing was missing. Suddenly, she heard a step above them. That's Peter's step, Wendy said. Children, go greet Father at the door. Peter entered, dropping down through his own personal tree, and the children ran to him happily. He had brought nuts and treats for them, and, from the crocodile, the correct time for Wendy. This he obtained by following the crocodile until he chimed the hour. You spoil us, Peter, Wendy said. We want to dance, the twins cried. Go ahead, said Peter, who was in a jolly mood. You and Mommy, too. Come on, Peter, Wendy said. Oh, I'm trying not to ruin the vocab words that I have underneath. Come on, Peter, Wendy said. Children, go put your nightgowns on first. While the boys ran to do so, Peter and Wendy had a quiet moment alone. Life is good, isn't it, Peter said, warming his feet by the fire. You and me and the little ones. It is, Wendy agreed. I think Curly has your nose. Michael takes after you, Peter said. Have you guys heard of like when parents or other family members say like, "Oh, I think you have my nose," or "You definitely got my ears" to the kids in the family? Because we look similar to our parents or whoever gave birth to us. So it's kind of funny that Wendy and Peter are comparing the little ones to them because they're really not their real parents, right? Maybe Wendy looks a little bit like them, like John and Michael, because she's their sister, but Peter doesn't really look anything like any of them, presumably, because he's not related to them in any biological way. So I think that's the scene is trying to be kind of funny. Like, don't you think that they look like you, Peter? But really, they shouldn't look like Peter because Peter is not their real father. Okay. But suddenly, Peter looked scared. Wendy, he said, this is all make believe, right? I'm not really their father. Wendy looked at him for a few seconds. It's make believe, she finally said. Whew, Peter cried. I can't tell you how relieved I am to hear that. It would make me feel so old to be their real father. And how do you feel about me? Wendy asked. Peter just blinked as if he didn't quite understand the question. Wendy sighed and went to sit at the other end of the room with her back to him. At that moment, the boys came out and sang and danced to Peter and Wendy in their nightgowns. When they had finished dancing, the boys got into bed for Wendy's goodnight story, the story that they loved best and which Peter hated. Now, as I read, I want you to think about why do you think Peter hated this story? Okay, it should be kind of obvious. Usually when she told this story, he put his hands over his ears or left the room. Tonight, however, he stayed to listen. Once upon a time, there was a gentleman, Wendy began. I want a lady, Curly said. I want a white rat, said Nibs. Shh, Wendy said. Okay, there was a lady as well. Their names were Mr. and Mrs. Darling. On the other side of the room, Peter flinched. Hey, John said, I know them. Me too, Michael said, but he didn't sound sure. Mr. and Mrs. Darling were married and had 3 white rats, Nibs cried hopefully. Children, Wendy said. And they had a nurse called Nana, but one day Mr. Darling got mad at Nana and chained her up in the yard, and so all the children flew away to Neverland. That is a great story, said Nibs. Imagine how sad these parents were after their children left, Wendy said. Poor parents, the boys moaned, but they were just pretending to feel sorry. It's an awfully sad story, the first twin said cheerfully. If you knew how strong a mother's love is, you wouldn't worry, Wendy said. And now she came to the part that Peter hated the most. You see, Wendy said, the mother left the window open so her children could fly back one day. She closed her eyes. Can't you see it? Can't you picture the happy scene when the children finally fly back home? From Peter's corner came a hollow groan. Excuse me. I was just going to make a groan sound, which is like when you feel like frustrated or annoyed by something and kind of like, ugh, you make this groan sound. So Peter is obviously feeling kind of annoyed by this story. Are you in pain? Wendy asked. No, but you are wrong about mothers. He took a deep breath. A long time ago, I thought my mother would also keep the window open for me, so I stayed away and played. But when I flew back, the window was locked. She had forgotten all about me, and another little boy was sleeping in my bed. Is that true or make-believe? Wendy asked, alarmed. Peter wasn't sure, but it scared the children all the same. So that is what mothers are like, they thought. Wendy, let's go home right now, John cried. Maybe it's too late and the window's already locked. Yes, she said, clutching her brothers. She was so worried about the closed window, that she didn't even think about Peter's feelings. Peter, will you arrange it? If you like, he replied coolly, as if she hadn't asked him to pass the nuts. As if she had asked him to pass the nuts. After all, if she didn't care, neither would he. Upset at the idea of losing their mother, the lost boys surrounded Wendy threateningly. We won't let you go, they cried. We'll keep you prisoner. Threateningly is like they're threatening her. They're saying, no, we're not going to let you, like, if you leave, there's going to be problems, right? They're making her feel kind of scared and feeling like she's not allowed to leave. Toodles, help! Wendy cried. Somehow, even though he was the silliest boy, she knew he was the right person to ask. Toodles stepped between her and the rest of the boys. You'll have to go through me first, he said. Peter spoke up. We keep no girls here against their will. Since flying makes you so tired, I'll have the Indians guide you through the woods. Then Tink can take you across the sea. I don't know about you guys, but I don't think if I was Wendy, I don't think I would want Tink to guide me across the sea, right? Because we know that Tink is not the most trustworthy of people. We know what she's done to Wendy before. So that's a little scary. Thank you, Peter, Wendy said. She turned to the lost boys. Come with us, she offered. I'm sure my parents would adopt you. This was meant mainly for Peter, but all of the boys jumped with joy. Peter, can we go? They pleaded. If you like, he repeated bitterly, and they rushed to pack. He, however, didn't move. Go pack, Peter, Wendy said, her voice low. I'm not going, he replied. Then, to show that he didn't care, he skipped around the room singing. But we can find your mother, Wendy begged. No, I don't like mothers. She would only tell me I have to grow up and stop having fun. The other boys watched this exchange nervously. Peter not coming? What would they do? Could they still go? Did they want to? Now then, Peter said, I'll have no fuss, no blubbering goodbyes. It was a pleasure to meet you, Wendy. He held out his hand formally. He's kind of holding it out for like a handshake like this. You'll take good care of yourself? She asked. Yep. Ready, Tinkerbell? Tinkerbell groaned from her cave. Another groaning sound, right? Like, ugh, I'm so annoyed. Tinkerbell groaned from her cave. She resented having to help Wendy, but at least the girl would finally be gone. Then off you go. At just that moment, however, there was a clashing sound above. The pirates had attacked the Indians. The trip home was off, at least for now. And that is the end of chapter 11, The Happy Family. Okay, we have 3 vocabulary words that I want to go over, and they are bitterly, clutching, and alarmed. And I'll talk about each one. Hopefully I can remember where they were in the book. Okay, let's start with bitterly. So, at some point in the book, the Lost Boys were like, Peter, can we go? Can we go? We want to go back to the Darling home. And Peter said, if you want to. And it says, right afterwards, it says, if you want to, he said bitterly. So I'm trying to think, okay, what does the word bitter mean? Bitterly comes from the word bitter. It's just, depending on the sentence, we might need to use the word bitterly instead of bitter. But let's write down the sentence that I found it in so that you guys can see. So it says Peter, and I can zoom in because this is kind of hard to see. Can we go? They pleaded. And Peter said, if you like. He repeated bitterly. Okay. Think about how Peter was feeling in this moment, right? Was Peter feeling happy about them asking to leave Neverland? Was he feeling kind of angry about him leaving, about them asking to leave Neverland? So think about how Peter was feeling. That should help you figure out what the word bitterly means. And I'm almost thinking about something that you guys might relate to a little bit more, but you know I think they use the word salty now, which we never used when I was a kid, but I hear kids using it nowadays. So it's like, salty doesn't just mean putting salt on food or salt on whatever, but salty, like you're feeling salty, you're kind of feeling like a little annoyed about something, a little frustrated with someone, right? And bitterly is a very similar word to salty. So if you're feeling salty or you're feeling bitter, they mean very similar things. So if that helps you kind of frame it, then go ahead and think about it that way. The second word is clutching. And let me just go ahead and find it in this book. And I think it is right here. Yes. Okay, so it's on page 92. Um, John says, maybe it's too late and the window's already locked. And then Wendy said, yes, she said, clutching her brothers. So yes, she said, clutching her brothers. And with this one, I want you to think about, kind of picture it in your head, right? Like they all are nervous, they're all scared. Oh my gosh, they're all realizing, what if that window is actually closed when we try to go home? We never really thought about that happening. And then think about what they're doing in this moment, right? Try and substitute a word or put in a word for clutching and see if it makes sense. So I'm going to try it with the word pushing. Yes, she said, pushing her brothers. Now think about it. If they were all nervous and they were all a little scared right now, would Wendy be pushing her brothers? And what we know about Wendy is that she's very maternal, right? We've already discussed that. So if you're maternal and you feel kind of like a mom, would you be pushing your children? So I want you to think about that. Pushing is obviously not the right word, right? I think after I said that, we can kind of agree, okay, that doesn't sound quite right. So what word would make sense? What do you think clutching actually means? And then the last one is alarmed. Again, I'm going to find a different pen color. And that is when Peter was describing to Wendy about trying to go home and the window being locked and another boy sleeping in his bed, and he said, my mom had forgotten all about me, right? And Wendy said, is that true or make believe? Wendy asked, alarmed. So I'll write that down. Is that true or make believe? Wendy asked, alarmed. Wendy asked, alarmed. Think about, how do you think Wendy was feeling in that moment? Was she kind of like calm about it? Maybe she didn't really care. Oh my gosh, I'm doing just what I do in school, and you guys are all like, we can't see. But now I have no one to tell me that you guys can't see. I'm sorry, you couldn't see the words that I was just writing down. There we go. So is that true or make believe? Wendy asked, alarmed. So is she feeling calm? Is she feeling shocked? Is she feeling surprised? And then go ahead and tell me, what do you guys think that that word means? So I want you to respond with the word bitterly, clutching, and alarmed, and your definitions of each word. And I will zoom out and leave it like this. You guys can go ahead and pause the video here if you want to see all three of them at the same time. And then later today, I'm going to release a different video with a new assignment to do with Peter Pan. Okay, so make sure that you watch this video because you'll need to know about chapter 11 to answer our next assignment that is coming up soon. Okay. All right. Good luck with your vocab work, third graders, and I will see you soon.